right. Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. This is one of the weekly landscape tours I do here in Raleigh, North Carolina, Zone 7B. Today, flipping the last of the potato bags over. I did a few a week or two ago that the foliage had completely died back, and they were definitely, they were at the end of getting any bigger this go round. These, the last of them here, still had foliage growing, and even up until today. I'm actually, I probably could have given these another couple weeks and gotten some even bigger potatoes than you're gonna see. But just on a short clock and kind of tired of watering them, honestly. There's a couple different ways. After these get flipped over, you take the potatoes out, you can reuse the compost, and then you can restart the potatoes. And you can either take, you know, a few of the potatoes that you pulled out of the bag like that and just put them right back into the compost. They'll start growing as it cools off later in the summer. You can get a fall crop. Or if some of the foliage still looks halfway decent, you can actually root these. Just do rooted cuttings on them, and you'll see along the sides here, you got places where roots will initialize, you know, just from that, but they root very easily. And so from rooted cuttings or from, you know, your existing potatoes, you can continue along. I just based on my schedule, don't have time for a second round of, you know, to monitor potatoes toward the end of summer, but you can, and you can just reuse that exact same compost. So let's flip this bag over. I don't think it's gonna be the best one that I'm gonna flip over, but I think it will be pretty good. That was the first bag that was similar to these right there. And so this compost will get used a few times in these bags. This is the second round with these 15-gallon bags, and they're still in great shape. So doesn't look like there's any potatoes here, but a simple turning over of the pile, and you start to see some whoppers in here. I mean, that's a beautiful potato right there. So gonna do pretty well on these last 5 bags. Did really great on the first 5 or 6 bags that I had flipped over as well. But here you go. You can see this group right here. But these are great. Gonna have potatoes at every meal. That's the for the next few weeks. I don't bother drying them and storing them, or, you know, doing anything that's like that. I'd rather just enjoy potatoes for the next few weeks because I love them and can have them at every meal. Once you think you've gotten most of them out, again, I just take the compost and I'll pick out the bigger material out of here, and this will go in the compost pile. The just plain compost part, I will just put it right back in a bag or put it right back in the vegetable garden. In this case, I just take the wheelbarrow over here to the vegetable garden, flip it over, and it will become part of my fall vegetable garden. The potatoes you just saw were various potatoes. They're fingerling potatoes, they were baking potatoes, they were any potato that I had that was bought from a grocery store that had a little age on it went into those bags this year. Again, part of the theme of this year has been to do more with less, less spending, and that went right over into the containers this year. I have a container planting video from maybe 2 months ago, and we're just gonna show off some of them that were planted in that video. I'm gonna link it down below, and you can go back and get the exact cultivars, the exact names of the various plants in that video if you'd like. I know I'm gonna also get a question about this rectangular container. I'm in the process of moving the containers to make it easier for somebody to water. And so that's why it's sitting in a path. But this rectangular container that looks like wood, what I got from Michael Carr Designs. He sells at garden centers all over America, but it's a really nice looking container, and it does look like wood. Okay, so the plants that are in this container are looking great, have filled out the container nicely. This orange rocket barberry, it's in a little bit of shade, so it's got some green in it and the purple. This one stretches a bit in the shade, so I can cut it back about 6 inches down and fill it out some more if I need to. There's some variegated Solomon seal in the back, and where this thing can be a bit weedy in the ground and spread itself all over the place, it's great in a container. It's because it's contained, and it just looks great. It's a great vertical element in any container, and again, I can pop this out of here, divide it, and use it next year in other containers. Have a caladium in the front and it won't be cold hardy above the ground in this container, but I'll probably transplant it into another container, and then I can winter protect it in a smaller container. And then this is a Carex, and I talked about in that video, I probably could have cut this Carex back, and I wouldn't have as much of this kind of deadish material in it. But they could be cut back in the late winter, and then all the new growth would have been fresher. This one needs to be popped out and divided at some point anyway, so next year it'll get popped out, divided, cut back, and I'll have 2 or 3 or 4 of them. There's a smaller one of these rectangles behind it, and it's just got a spike in the center of it that I've had for a couple seasons now. These are marginally hardy outside here. If just kind of in a regular winter here in Zone 7B, these will come back. Then there's a red coleus, some variegated vinca. You got to be careful letting this variegated vinca run out on the ground like it is right now, because it will root in. So occasionally I'll just go over to it, hold it together, cut it off, and that'll prevent it from rooting into the ground and running away. But it's a nice striking piece, and pretty easy to, after this is cut, to just stick this in another container and it'll root out pretty easily. And there's one begonia sitting in the back of that. Here's another rectangular container, which can be kind of hard to find a place for in the landscape. They work well on steps. So this one's up at the top of the front steps. This is a Utopia plum yew in the center of it, and great shade, evergreen conifer. I've had that one for a couple seasons now, and it just, you don't have to do anything to it. The pink and green plant there is a polka dot plant. The vining piece that's coming over the side is a wire vine, and then over on the right is a little more of that variegated vinca that we saw in the container in the back. But I think that combo is great, perfect in the shade. It's not super showy, but it doesn't need to be. That pink pops in there, and the various greens look great together. Here's one pulled out to the front driveway, again, to make it easy for somebody to water. This Koofia is called Sriracha Rose, just great for pollinators. Got several different Koofia in the landscape. Most all of them are annuals for me, but nothing will draw in hummingbirds more than the Koofia. There's a couple of annual vinca in the container, a light pink and then a darker pink. And then again, the vinca vine, the variegated vinca vine used in this one again. This is the only 3 I probably have in, but you've seen them all now. The tree form in the middle of it is a Japanese holly that was purchased on clearance it was a clearance Lowe's plant. And there's a video for it if you want to see how I tree formed, some of these tree forms that are in the containers out here. But again, it was a discount plant. Which I like. And then there's some Carex planted in here as well. And I don't care what Carex it is. These are so great, and there's so many. I've got a crabgrass right here next to it. I don't care, what varieties of Carex, whether it's something like this that has this silver sheen to it, or a variegated one, or a gold one like Everillo. They're all just great container or landscape additions. Kind of underused. They're not actual grasses, but they're very grass-like. And it's just a great texture in any container.
I love the containers that Jim chose to feature. I thought I'd feature a few of the containers that I especially like. These containers and the way that we use them in the landscape, they work together as a unit. So even though there's one container, they play off each other in texture and color and leaf size and all that kind of thing to make a beautiful composition, I think anyway. I'm going to start with the containers down here. They play well together. They have those blue tones and some lime greens. We've got Dianella in this first one with Euphorbia. We have a heliotrope, hasn't started quite blooming, those purple, fragrant, sort of cotton candy smelling blooms. And then just your basic sage that we did from seed. Right next to it, last fall, we planted this blue boulevard cypress in with the euonymus. It's sort of a dark greenish, grayish blue euonymus, playing well with the blue boulevard. Also, as a contrast, put in red sorrel. Sort of has a purplish red vein to it. It's an herb that can be used as well. But just between the two of them, it's just a beautiful combination. In the back, these containers kind of play well together two. The first one sort of goes along the lines that Jim talked about doing more for less. The Creeping Jenny was just in the yard, so decided to put it in here with a lot of contrast with the variegated Pittosporum. In the same venue, those variegated Vincas we just took out of the yard as well. So we're just trying to get the most bang for our buck, so to speak. The second container probably has one of my favorite coleus plants I've ever seen. It's called Stained Glass Works, and it's just so striking. And you can see that with the Creeping Jenny, it's just an incredible combination. We've placed it in here with your basic Dracaena spike that has made it through the winter maybe 2 or 3 years now, and each year it's sturdier and stockier. Also in here we've got some begonias and another coleus just for a little extra color. The last one over here is a cryptomeria. It's called Twinkle Toes. It's a beautiful dwarf cryptomeria. We just placed it in here with just 1 or 2 vinca for just a burst of color. But either way, it's beautiful on its own or in the whole composition of several containers together. This is a plant with a bit of a story. It's called After 8 Oriental Lily, and we found it on the side of the road in a container. It was done blooming last year, and the person, instead of planting it in their yard, decided that it didn't need to be theirs anymore, and it couldn't be much more beautiful. And they're considered sort of a dwarf kind of looking stargazer lily. Everybody talks about the stargazer lilies, but this one is considered to be more dwarf than that, but it does have the similar characteristics in the color of the flower for sure. Such a beautiful plant, free from the side of the road.
I think overall we're probably nearing what I would call peak color for the summer. It took a little while longer this year to get here. We had, honestly, a little bit cooler of a spring. It was dry, and so I think that the limited moisture, slightly cooler nights early on kind of slowed it down, and then when we hit June and it got warm, it went past warm and went to 98 and 99 and continued to stay dry. Finally here in the last week and a half, 2 weeks, I think we've gotten 3, maybe 4 thunderstorms, hit and miss, but better than we had for sure, and the temperatures moderated back to our summer normal. And for us here in Raleigh, Zone 7B, end of June to middle of July, somewhere around 89 to 91 for a high, and really, really humid. I'm sweating like crazy right now. So peak color here, and here, and here, and here, and definitely here, and here, out by the road. This is definitely very, very colorful. One thing we haven't shown here in the last few weeks is some of the dahlias, and there's many, many more. I showed them like 3 weeks in a row because, you know, it was so new earlier in the season, but I haven't shown them. But here's a few that you haven't seen yet. Thank you guys so much for following along with these weekly landscape update videos. I wanted to go through some of the containers, show you the last of the potatoes, and just some of the other showier elements that are in the garden right now. We'll be back in a week or two with another one of these. And I think, again, I think we're reaching that kind of peak color moment from here on the rest of the summer. Some of it will be doing some pruning here and there to try to make room for some things to fill in more, or some things are outgrowing other things in height, whatever it is. But I'll be showing you some of those maintenance things in these weekly landscape update videos. Thanks for watching.